Everybody, and welcome once again to Sports Talk 920. I don't think my mic was working there. I'm going to test this out one more time. Nope, that doesn't work. So I was going to try to use a PlayStation 4 microphone here for the show. But anyway, welcome to this week's episode of Sports Talk 920. I am your host, Michael Goodman. And by the time being 2:30 a.m. Central Time, we know Rudy is probably not on the show, and that would be correct. But anyway, if you haven't checked our blog at sportstalk920.blogspot.com, we do have the latest in the NFL predictions for the 2016 season, and really, I think especially on the NFC side, we'll talk more about it next week, hopefully when Rudy comes on. But you can kind of diagnose and look at that yourself. Rudy says I'm being partially biased here, but you can go look and be the judge of that. We'll dive more into it next week. I'll maybe talk about the. I'll save it all. I'll save it all for when Rudy gets here. But I do have the standings and the Super Bowl winners and stuff like that. The Super Bowl matchup. I don't have the Super Bowl winner. We'll talk about that too when we can further discuss that with Rudy too. So be sure to tune in next week. We'll have the 2016 NFL preview show right here on Spreaker Radio. So be sure to tune into that. But a lot of stuff that we could talk about here with the preseason, kind of the dress rehearsals going on tonight and last night, and going on this weekend yet. One of the big things I wanted to talk about was Tony Romo's injury yesterday, his back injury. Everything does appear to be okay. Tony Romo said he wanted to get back in the game, and at that point they wouldn't let him. And every year it seems to be there's always an injury. Of course, for us Packer fans, one of the biggest ones was the injury to Jordy Nelson. That and I think that was in the second or third preseason game. I guess third would be the dress rehearsal, but where he tore his ACL and he missed the entire 2015 campaign. Effectively almost ruining their whole entire season. And I guess as far as that goes. Again, it gets worse and worse. Like, do these guys even need to play? Adrian Peterson, I can't remember the last time he's taken a snap in the preseason. I think just offhand, this could be, he could have done it a few years after this, but I think I remember the first year when Brett Favre went to the Minnesota Vikings back in 2009. I believe he played at least in the game, maybe to get in sync with Brett in live action. And with Tony Romo's case, kind of yesterday too, where it looked like maybe they would lose, Tony Romo making the slide, getting hit in the back. It was Michael Ben that made the hit, but anyway, kind of Tony Romo re-injuring the back and him feeling now, I guess, confident, glad that happened, but it looked like it was going to be serious at first, but ended up really being nothing. And I guess we were bringing up the age-old question again: is it worth playing your starters or not? And especially maybe in the third preseason game, where now you got to wait 16 more days until the regular season starts. And at that point, is it really going to be worth it? What's you're basically going to be putting your starters at risk to get hurt. Really, you look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers, went 6 for 9 tonight. I believe he was in on a touchdown pass to Randall Cobb, so he threw a touchdown pass. But basically, it's going to be Rodgers looks like he normally does. You're like, okay, good, whatever. Even if he plays bad, you're still going to be whatever. Aaron Rodgers is only the preseason. They'll be fine during the regular season. And the flip side of that, you could lose them. You could and a Madden 16, I just bought that for the PS4 a few days before Madden came out, a few weeks I should say before Madden came out. And my first season, he broke his leg in the preseason game, and I ended up losing him for the entire year. And basically, when you think about that, is it really worth it? And and part of me is because there is the flip side of that where, guys again using Aaron Rodgers, more familiar role for me, um, saying Jared Cook. Jared Cook's a new free agent. You want to make sure that Aaron Rodgers and Jared Cook are going to be in sync. I mean, you can complete all these passes in practice, but you're not going to get that real simulation that you're going to get in a preseason game, and really to test the waters what you have, or to work on things, um, further, or maybe find out what's maybe flawed in the things that you're working on in practice. So I mean, there is a little bit of benefits, but at the same time, you got to wonder, geez, is this really is this really what's gonna make or break our Super Bowl run? It seems like, um, if you were a gambling man, I mean, for what you're betting, you could lose an entire season um, of your star player in a preseason game. Back in Michael Vick, I think he tore his ACL one year in a preseason game back in like 2006 or 2004. I can't remember what year he did it in, but or almost did. I can't remember, but you kind of get what I'm saying there. I think that's I think where Matt Schaub kind of first came about, maybe. Um, but anyway, you're risking jeopardizing your whole regular season to then just maybe saying, okay, yeah, things are going good. We're a well-oiled machine where maybe a lot of that stuff maybe just takes a half, or maybe you even sacrifice one of your 16 games. You see it so many times. I mean, look at the Kansas City Chiefs that started out the last year so terribly. I guess you can almost say the preseason game. I think they were 1-5. I want to say I think it was 1-5 or 1-4. Started off the season, and then won 10 or 11 straight, or 10 straight to propel themselves into the playoffs. So I mean, things turn around in that regular season time too. So it's a hard question to really answer, and and not to say preseason's totally worthless. I think there's a lot of these guys, and a lot of young guys that really can prove something, that they can show that they can play in real life game situation. Almost make it like, I mean, basically you could treat the preseason time basically being the minor leagues of professional football, since there is no minor league. Maybe if there was a minor league system in football, if there was like a spring football league that are kind of like NFL Europe used to be, where you could take these young guys, or even take some of these the rookies, it would be kind of hard to do. So maybe slim it down to like 2 preseason games. You have a lot of those 1-year vets and up that are kind of maybe fighting for backup roles, or spots on the roster. They can show if they actually want to invite them into these 2 preseason games, and kind of fight for these roster spots against each other. You kind of know what you have before you get them on into those preseason games. You can have guys like Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, Tom Brady, who whatever team you root for, you can have them sit out. I mean, there's got to be a better way, and I guess still, even if you have those 2 preseason games, maybe just see how they fit with them. I guess in those 2 games, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But it's kind of weird, again, you look back and saying, Packer fans were bitching about that preseason game that they lost back, the Hall of Fame game. The Colts lost too, but really, they're still playing for, they played all the regular amount of 4 games, and again, maybe 1 week of just reducing the injuries that you have on your team. And sorry about that. And really, that's something could be avoided. But I guess back to the original point with Tony Romo too. Dak Prescott, he's been lighting it up in the preseason. We kind of talked about that last week. I guess I can't remember the stat line offhand of what it was against Seattle last night, but again, didn't look terrible. and many I think Cowboy fans were going to justify, before the Romo injury. I think before that incident happened, it was more of a well, it's fine. We got Dak Prescott, we got the future now. The future's now. I know I've been known to use that, but I think once Tony Romo got hurt in that game, maybe reality set in a little bit more, where that, oh boy, we're gonna be throwing a rookie quarterback in there, and yeah, he did well in a couple preseason games. I mean, all we have to do is go back to 2008 when the Detroit Lions went 4-0 in the preseason, and then went on to go 0-16 in the regular season. So it, it's not always a good depiction of how your regular season is going to go, as Skip Bayless might tell you. Um, but yeah, for a guy like Dak Prescott, I mean, I think, I understand why Jerry Jones is high on him. I think he might be that quarterback in the future. Maybe a little bit relieved because it was something that they were putting off, and maybe could have spent a higher round draft pick on, but maybe luckily for them, getting Dak Prescott in the fourth round is just what they needed. Kind of like the Seattle Seahawks getting spending a third rounder on Russell Wilson, and eventually getting their franchise QB. And but as far as starting this year, I would not consider doing that. Brett Hundley, you know, again, maybe and Dak Prescott both being thrown in, and knowing they're going to be, barring injury, they're going to be putting backup roles. We've seen what Brett Hundley did last year in the preseason, basically lighting everything up, leading the league. We talked about that last week too. But once you're the starter, I mean, man, a lot more pressure gets put on you. I mean, we look at guys like, I think even Paxton Lynch, who I also think might be a pretty good quarterback, considering he's not been playing necessarily terrible, but that Simon or whatever his name is, the 1 year pro out of Northwestern, who's been named the starter for the Denver Broncos. He's came in and maybe taking the starting job away because basically Matt Sanchez hasn't won it. But anyway, Lynch, couldn't grab that starting job. Jared Goff, you don't always. I mean, it's now like the new trend. You want to draft that quarterback. You want to put him there right away. I watched Christian Ponder tonight. Surprised he's still in the league after that 2011 first round draft pick. Being thrust in there, and maybe I don't know if he would have been a good quarterback either way. He's terrible now. But I think certain players can do that. Cam Newton was kind of thrust in that role, and for him, it even kind of took a little while to, we're talking, he was a rookie in 2011. It took him until 2015 before he really went to superstar status. I mean, wasn't never really a bad quarterback, but never really got to the level that he played at last year, which is still maybe not elite, but it's superstar. People like it. Andrew Luck, and you can be. There's a lot of things to criticize about Andrew Luck. His prone to turnovers. Hasn't really declined as much as maybe they anticipated, and maybe that's just being thrust into the starting spot right away. And sometimes that best. I mean, sometimes guys do just get it. Peyton Manning kind of, but he had a bad rookie year, and things turned out well for him. It's going to be different with every player, but I mean, if you can, scenarios happen. Tom Brady being thrust in there after Drew Bledsoe's injury, but I think if maybe we're starting to see that trend. I think ever since Aaron Rodgers. I mean, look, you can look at that draft, and maybe that's the generalization thing that people might look at nowadays is man, Alex Smith, the number one overall pick in the 2005 draft, he's now a serviceable starter. He's not. I don't. He's maybe in that realm of the B-list quarterbacks, maybe even C's with like the Phillip Rivers, Tony Romo, stuff like that. But for a while, he was just a flat out bust, and a lot of it wasn't his fault, but it was just the scenario he was thrown into. Where you look at Aaron